And that's where I think the secret of success over the next few years for this economy is going to lie, and I suspect that something similar is true for the United States. So I'm very glad that you're here. I'm fascinated to listen to the questions that we've just had. I can't think, if I were British Airways, of a better opportunity to get customer feedback on things they do well and things they need to do better, because it's always true of big businesses. I mean, I have spent a long time with a bank. You get exactly the same thing. People saying, here are the things you do well, here are the things you've got to sharpen your act up on, and the important thing to do is always be listening to your customers, isn't it? You don't need me to tell you that. I have spent my first 3 weeks going around this country. I've spent a career as an international banker, so I've travelled a lot around the world. I haven't travelled enough around this country, and I felt that before I got very far into my new job, I needed to meet small businesses around this country. So, for instance, I've been in Cambridge. Cambridge is famous for having a science park. It's one of the great clusters of innovation in this economy. It has one of the world's leading universities, of course. I admit that grudgingly as somebody who went to Oxford. And I met several different businesses in all kinds of different sectors, some in services, some in manufacturing, some high-tech, some traditional. What they had in common was energy and innovation. Some were young, some were old. One was a 100-year-old private company. Others are less than 10 years old and are run by people who are less than 30 years old. The common theme, though, was innovation, energy, and getting engaged in the international marketplace. I was earlier this week in Belfast. You don't need me to tell you that Northern Ireland has many special problems because of the history, but there too I met a range of businesses. One of them, actually Bombardier's offshoot in Belfast, leading edge aerospace composite metals technology being developed there. Others were small businesses engaged in offshore wind farm technology, water power and so forth. In other words, an absolutely leading edge sector which is growing very rapidly the world over. And again, young, dynamic, energetic and outward looking. It's that characteristic of SMEs that gives me the hope and the optimism for our economy and for the American economy, although to repeat, it's rather presumptuous of me to be talking about the American economy. Nevertheless, I am sure that the same thing is true across the Atlantic, that I believe passionately is true for us. It is clearly the case that the American trade and investment relationship is very important to Britain. We're a small country, you're a very large one. We're a small economy, you are the world's leading economy. And you will still be the world's leading economy even if you get to the point where China is numerically, in absolute terms, larger, because the US is going to be the world's primary source of dynamism for a long, long time to come. For us, the trade relationship with the US is, of course, critical. $70 billion we import from you, which is, by the way, more than you sell to Brazil, Russia, China, and India put together. So we're an important market. And you are our most important market. And in terms of investment, this country is a country that is very open to investment from all sources. Actually, one of our great competitive strengths is, I believe, that for many centuries this country has been open to inward investment. And our primary source of investment is, guess where? The United States. We want to make sure, it's part of my job to make sure, that we make that investment opportunity as attractive as we possibly can, which of course takes us into a whole variety of issues, on some of which I think we do well and on some of which I think we have some progress to make. It covers issues like tax, it covers issues like immigration policy, it covers issues like about planning, it covers issues like research and development support and so forth. There are a lot of things we have, a lot of ducks we have to get in the row. But that's part of my task, to work with other members of the government to make sure that we make this the most attractive place for you to look at if you're thinking about partnership or investment. And this is important, I believe, to both sides. Partnership is the operative word, actually, as we think about the 21st century, as we think about a world economy that is coming increasingly connected and globalized, and where the centre of gravity is shifting towards Asia. and other emerging markets, but particularly Asia. These are challenges for us all on either side of the Atlantic, for the governments on both sides of the Atlantic. It's not going to be solved simply by governments talking to each other, obviously. When did governments talking to each other solve anything, you might even ask, alone? It is not going to be solved just by big companies talking to big companies and investing in each other. No, this is an essential opportunity and challenge for small businesses in this country, in the United States, on the continent, and around the world. So I'm delighted to be here. I think this program that BA have put on is imaginative and exciting. I was honoured to be asked to come here. I'm delighted to do it. It's not for me to advertise any one British company, I guess, except to say that I am an inveterate British Airways traveller. I, generally speaking, enjoy the experience. And what I will say, and then I'm going to stop for the questions, is if you look at arriving in Britain, you've just done that. Actually, you did it the easy way coming from America. You did the daylight flight. I usually come back from New York on the overnight one, which is the worst single flight that I ever do. Not because it's British Airways, let me hastily add, but because it's too short and it's overnight. And you end up arriving at kind of 1 a.m. New York time, bleary-eyed in London. So you did it the easy way. You came across on the daylight flight. And to arrive in Heathrow, I don't think the kindest friends of Britain could say that Heathrow is the best airport in the world. What I think the kindest friends, or the honest friends of Britain, would say is that Terminal 5 is one of the best terminals anywhere. And believe you me, I have travelled to a lot of airport terminals. And I think Terminal 5 is, if you're going to have to arrive by airplane, in the small hours of the morning, in an airport terminal, they don't come better than Terminal 5. So, but we've got a lot of work to do. We've got a lot of work to do on this country's infrastructure. We've got a lot of work to do on the support we provide for inward investment and for our own companies as they go out into the international domain. But there is nothing that is more important to our achieving sustainable growth for our economy and therefore delivering welfare to our people in the years and decades to come than getting this agenda right. So I'm a great pleasure to be here. Very happy to take a few questions.